Life is a workout, and Smoothie King is here to help you power through. Whether you're crushing morning miles or sprinting through back-to-back meetings, give your body the energy, protein, and power it needs to help you conquer your goals. Only at Smoothie King.
Hey everybody, and welcome to this month's episode of Real Talk, the monthly conversation where we talk to one of our previous guests or listeners or maybe somebody else and let them tell their story.
Foreshadowing.
What?
That was foreshadowing. Is what
it was foreshadowing. Yes, it's very brilliant. We did a very good job. So yeah, this week we have me. I'm going to talk about my stuff, and I'm very not at all nervous or anxious about it. So we're going to chat with me a little bit about my experiences with mental health, aren't we, Steven? That's right, Steven. That's what we're going to do. When I am uncomfortable, I make jokes.
And I'm the third Steven.
Yes, it's great. So before we get going, here's a little bit on how these episodes work. So if this is your first time, welcome to Real Talk.
Third Steven welcomes you.
Yes, third Steven welcomes you, as well as second Steven and first Steven.
Not first Steven, though. First Steven is he's rude these days.
Yeah, first Steven's a piece of shit. Y'all need to watch out for him. But so this is how these episodes work. On the first Monday of every month, you're going to get one of these episodes. It's not our normal episode if you're a new listener. And in addition to the regular episode, you get this. You still get your episode on Thursday. But we want to sit down with folks who we've had on the show before and maybe just have a little more of a serious conversation about their individual experiences with mental illness or mental health. Then we continue the conversation over on Patreon as an exclusive episode for those who donate at the $5 level or more. Now, this isn't a paywall. You're still going to get the whole story over here, but there's just more conversation relating to it that will be had over on Patreon. So we've said it all. Let's dive in. So, hey, Steven, where does this all start for you?
Oh, sorry. You're not talking about
No, different
me.
Steven. Sorry. Well, Steven, I'm glad you asked. Oh gosh. Okay. So serious talk. Okay. I have dealt with mental illness for a while, roughly, God, I don't know, 11 years now, 12 years, that I knew of. So when I was little, I was diagnosed, this is not mental illness, this is just a disorder, but when I was little, I was diagnosed at 4 with ADHD. And I constantly would tell my mom, it felt like there were wheels inside me that never stopped turning. And that, in a lot of ways, I think was the first indicator that, hey, maybe this kid's got some anxiety issues. But yeah, I just felt like I was always going all the time, and I couldn't calm my body down. I was tense. I was aggravated very easily. And so I got diagnosed with ADHD. They called that a day, but my psychiatrist now will tell me, hey, sometimes people misdiagnose misdiagnose anxiety disorders as ADHD. And I don't think that was the case for me, but I think I had both. Because I definitely had ADHD. I'm still very easily distracted in a conversation. Sometimes I don't pay attention to what Chris says.
That's true.
I make jokes when I'm doing serious things. So I guess the real big start to it would be high school, Steven. So when I was 16, I started dealing with a lot of feelings, as we all do. Hormones, angsty teenage years. And, for most of my childhood, I was bullied. I am, a large man. I'm not as large as I was. And, but when you're a 250-pound 15-year-old, you're going to get made fun of. And so I was a bit of a big boy. And, I caught a lot of flack for that. Kids are mean. We all know kids are mean. And I grew up in an area of the country and in an area of even my state where it was an insult and something they made fun of to call me gay. It was a very homophobic area, unfortunately, that I grew up in. And not everyone, but at the time, and it's turned around, but at the time, it was very much an area where that was an insult. That was something people used against you. And that was something you got teased about. And because I didn't fit into society's idea of what male masculinity, like gender norm-ish stuff was. I was ridiculed about that for a while. And so it was really interesting being teased about all that stuff. And it took me until I was about 19 to really be okay with the fact that I didn't care what anybody thought of me. But the bullying was a lot. And on top of that, I was dealing with some other stuff. So this is when I start to think about mental illness and mental health. I was 16 years old when I started being sad. I guess that's the easiest way to say it. And, I've said it before on the show. Sadness is the common cold. Depression is cancer. There's a very big difference. But at the time, I was like, oh, I'm sad. But I was having a lot of dark thoughts. I was super down. I had no energy. I skipped 16 years. Whoa. I skipped 16 days of my junior year and 32 days of my senior year. They should have failed me and expelled me, but they didn't because I had good grades. For the most part, I let them slip, but I just didn't want to be there. And so I said I was sick a lot, and I had mono, and my immune system was compromised, so they believed me. And, my mom didn't believe me. She knew it was bullshit, but I think she knew I needed time away. And it was to avoid the bullying, and just because I didn't have the motivation to get out of bed and go to school every morning. And because I knew what was going to happen when I got there, And yeah, I was dealing with that. And then there was an incident. So I'm going to go ahead for this episode. This is the time. Trigger warnings. Stopping my story right now and telling you all of the trigger warnings. So, trigger warnings for suicide and self-harm. And let's see, suicidal thoughts, things like that. And then accidents or blood and gore briefly, but not like super detailed, so don't worry. Other than that, I think we are all set. Sorry, yeah. Death of a family member. And so, yeah, those are my content warnings: death of a family member, suicide and self-harm, and grisly accidents. So if you cannot handle those things, maybe skip the rest of this one, but just wanted to let everybody know. So when I was 17 years old, I was dating this girl. We dated in high school for about 2 years, and there were some really great things about that relationship. There were some really not great things that played into my mental health as well. But I was dating this girl, and we were horsing around as teens do, and we were chasing each other out in her driveway, and she chased me into the house. And when I ran through the doorway, I closed the door behind me. Now, for years, I told people I tripped and I grabbed the door to break my fall, and it shut behind me because I was too upset over the fact that I made the conscious choice to shut the door behind me. But I did. I shut the door behind me. And when I did, she tried to stop it, and her arm went through the window and it sliced her arm. And I will leave it at, at first we thought everything was good. Then we very quickly realized it was not because it had hit an artery. So I'll leave it there as far as the graphicness of what happened next. But I just remember freaking the hell out. Her mom was a nurse. Her mom was upstairs. So she went upstairs and handled that. And I called 911. And I had a full-on meltdown and went to the hospital, sat up in the hospital waiting. And she had to go through surgery. And it had severed her ulnar artery 90%. If it had been 100, she probably would not have survived. And I blamed myself for that for a very long time. Even though I was told that's not your fault. It was an accident. Accidents happen. But I could not deal with that. And so that was a very, very big part of what came next. So I went through going to school again and trying to handle things, and eventually I started having chest pains, and I was dizzy, and I thought I was having a heart attack. And so I mean, I had this one teacher, God bless, Carol Riggs, if you're out there, you're amazing. But she was my choir teacher, and she would let me just come and sit in her room, or come in her room and use my cell phone to call my mom if I needed to calm down, or whatever I needed to do. She was pretty rad lady. And I thought I was having a heart attack, and this was happening on the regs. And so I was freaking out. And eventually, it just got to the point between that and a whole bunch of other stuff that, and I'm not going to go into too much detail here because I don't know if I can right now. I have told this story in detail only a few times, but today is not going to be one of those times because I don't know, I've missed some meds. I don't want to really delve too deep into it. But that is the point when I decided I was going to end my life. And the closest detail I'll give is I was in the middle of an argument with my dad, which didn't happen that often, but I was being a little shit about something. And I was angsty. I had all these feelings, and I slammed the door behind me. When I did, I knocked a lamp over, and there was a piece of glass on the floor, and I saw an out, and I tried to take it. And I stopped myself, partially through, and contained the issue and stopped the bleeding and never spoke a word of it. It was the winter, so I wore long sleeves. I wore jackets. And I didn't say anything about it for 10 years. And so that happened. And over the course of college, I had good spots. I had bad spots. I had times when I was on the top of the world, and I had times where I was sitting on a bridge in our campus's park. And it's not a high bridge. It wasn't one of those, but I remember sitting on a bridge and dangling my feet off there, and it was like 20 degrees outside. And I was just sitting outside thinking, like, I need to drop out of school. Nobody cares about me. Like, I would go through really high highs and really low lows. And never sought medical attention because seeing a therapist or getting medication was weakness, and I wasn't interested in that. At least that was my belief at the time. And so I was kind of a little shit through a lot of that. I mean, Chris can attest. I wasn't a bad person, but I was kind of a dick. And
to give yourself credit, most of us at that age are a little bit of a dick.
Yeah, but I was kind of the worst for a while.
I get what you're saying.
And I was not pleasant to be around. And then during summer classes, I got a call that my dad was going to have heart surgery. And I remember thinking, okay, well, actually I got a call that they were doing a heart cath. They weren't worried about it, but they wanted to just go ahead and check it out, make sure everything was okay. And so I went down to Winston-Salem anyway from school, which was about an hour and a half drive, because I was like, I want to be there just in case. And when I got there, it was very clear it was a lot worse than I thought. There was blockage. There was 98% blockage in a few of the arteries. One of the arteries was so badly damaged that they couldn't do anything with it. And so we were told he was days away from a fatal heart attack. So they had to do emergency bypass surgery. So they did. And God bless Chris, to his credit. He came down when he found out and spent the whole day that we were in surgery. He had a big bag, like Mary Poppins. And his whole goal was to just distract me and my family from what was going on while my dad was in surgery. So there was bananagrams and crossword puzzles and jumbles and goldfish and all sorts of stuff. And we'll tell a fun story about the goldfish on the Patreon episode. Stay tuned to that to hear Chris do one of the grossest things I've ever seen.
Scare your family members.
Scare my family members to this day. That was 2011. 7 years later, they still talk about it. But so surgery went well, but I had to grow up really fast because when you get pulled in and you're watching your dad. I mean, you were a witness, Chris, to my dad signing his will.
Yeah.
And because he didn't have a will up until that point. When you have to get pulled in by yourself to your dad, who's about to go into surgery, which could be fatal surgery if something goes wrong, and tells you have to take care of each other, you and your mom, and you have to do this, and it makes you grow up. And so I kind of stopped being as much of a little asshole as I was and became a bit of an adult. And I was on and off dealing with depression and anxiety. My anxiety got really bad after college. I graduated and moved to Charlotte, and it got really bad. And I finally went to the doctor, and doctor said, "Have you ever taken an SSRI?" I said, "Nope." She said, "Well, we're going to put you on Prozac." And so I was like, cool, sick. And I took that for a while, and I had Xanax as like a panic drug if I needed it. But took that for a while, and it just got to a point where it wasn't really working very much. But I felt like I was in a haze for like a year and a half. And I still am frustrated over that because like even my wedding, I was taking it at my wedding and everything felt surreal, like a dream. So it was to the point that like I didn't get to enjoy my wedding to its fullest extent. And I was taking it and I thought that was just what it did. But turns out, no, it's because it wasn't doing the right thing for me. If it was doing it that consistently. And so they doubled the dose when it wasn't working. And within a few days, I started having thoughts about hurting myself. And I knew since I had those thoughts before, I knew that was not me and that it was medically induced because I didn't want that, but I felt an urge. And so I quit cold turkey, which is the worst thing you can do. But it scared me so bad that I did. Went through withdrawal. That was fun. And then I didn't seek any medical anything for my anxiety for a while. I left it alone. Up until this point, never seen a therapist still. And then New Year's Eve of 2016, you all know this, I've talked about it on the show. New Year's Eve of 2016, I get off the treadmill and I get a call that my dad has had a massive heart attack and he's unresponsive. And within 30 minutes, I get another call that he has passed away. And that destroyed my world. I had just 2 months before that quit a job where I was working 80 hours a week, 7 days a week. I had no day off. I was commuting 3 hours round trip. And I was miserable. And I'd quit that job because, again, those thoughts had crept up. I actually got in, nobody knows this, haven't even told this story on a podcast before. Here you go, exclusive. Actually got in my car to go buy a gun because I was just so broken that I didn't know what to do. And so I didn't, which is a good thing, but I just had that moment where I didn't know what else to do. And so I quit that job. My wife was like, "You have to get out of there. We will make it work." And, God bless my wife. She's been super supportive through all this. And then 2 months after that, Dad passes away. I have a month where I'm totally fine. I have a few days where I'm emotional, but then I shut it all out. And I spent a month ignoring everything. And then I went to meet my mom on Valentine's Day in a town like 45 minutes away. There's a big mall. And I went to meet her on Valentine's Day because I didn't want her to be alone on our first Valentine's Day. And we were going to get lunch and spend the day together. And I started getting dizzy. I started not being able to stand up. My legs went out from under me. I couldn't do anything. My chest was pounding. I couldn't see straight. And my sweet mother had to literally pick me up and put me in the back of her car and take me to the doctor. And that is what I learned was a massive not a heart attack. Oof. I thought it was, but it was a massive panic attack. And so I had one of those. I slowly realized after going to the doctor and leaving the house a few times, I had become, as part of this breakdown, I'd become agoraphobic. I could not leave the house. I slept in our walk-in closet because it felt safe. I couldn't go anywhere. I couldn't walk to the mailbox without buckling. And so that was a very long process of every single day pushing myself a little further. Today I'm going to go to the mailbox. Today I'm going to walk past the neighbor's house and then come back. Tomorrow I'm going to walk to the end of the street and come back. And That took a long time. But once I was able to get out, my big moment was I finally, after a few months of this, was able to go to a concert for a band I saw that came through. They're a comedy band. They're silly, called Ninja Sex Party. And that show was my moment where I took back my life. And it was really, really cool to be able to do that. We actually just got an email from a listener this past week who is an NSP fan as well. And because of that story, purchased me a copy of their new album that hasn't come out yet, but pre-ordered a limited edition copy that was autographed and all this just for me, not for themselves, but just for me to mail to us. And that floored me because this was such a big part of my journey that I don't even talk about that much, but it was that moment, that day getting out was huge. And started seeing a therapist, tried Zoloft. That didn't work. Gave me brain zaps. I was blacking out. So quit that. Tried a bunch of stuff. Ended up on Lexapro and Buspar and Klonopin and Xanax. Those worked for a while. Weaned off of the habit-forming ones just to be safe. And I still take Buspar and Lexapro now. And it has been a long process. But a big, big part of that process was starting this show. And this show was there when I needed something. I couldn't leave my house. I had no job. I just lost my dad. I was in a bad way. And I talked to Chris. I was like, we could do a podcast. And I think Chris was just like, all right. I think in the beginning, and you've told me this, in the beginning, you definitely did this to be a supportive friend.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
And then I think it turned into something that we both realized we needed more than we ever thought we did.
Mm-hmm.
And it has been such a journey getting to know the people on this show, and it's been wild seeing the effect that this has had on me for the better, and sometimes for the worse, because if our numbers drop, or if our Patreon drops, or I freak out for a minute because I'm so invested in this. But maybe now I guess you can kind of see why I'm so invested in it, is because this show brought me back, and I needed that. And so, I mean, this show is before we started this, when I was at my lowest of lows, last podcast on the left, I've talked about this before, but last podcast on the left and the McElroy shows, specifically Travis, were things that got me through and kept me alive, literally kept me alive. And I was finally able, because of this show, I was able to meet both of them. I was able to have Travis on, talk to him, thank him. I was able to go meet Marcus in person and thank him. And that's wild. It's super wild. So the whole point of the show coming out of that was so that people out there knew it's normal to feel this way, because I spent the entire first 6 months thinking, this is not normal. This is not okay. Why do I feel this way? It's not okay to get therapy. It's not okay to get medicine. But it is. And I spent so very long thinking it wasn't. And so that's about it. That's the story. Yeah. I did it. I told a thing. But well, Stephen, thank you so much for sharing your story. Well, you're welcome, Stephen. It was my pleasure. Thank you for having me on.
You're also very welcome from me. Third Stephen. Is that what we call
Stephen?
Third
I think
Stephen,
it was third Stephen.
Yeah.
But we do want to remind you, if you are in need of help or you're having trouble coping with mental illness, you're not alone. Please reach out to a mental health professional. If you're in crisis, please contact the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline at 1-800-273-8255. That's 1-800-273-TALK. We're going to continue this conversation as an exclusive episode for our supporters over on Patreon. I'm going to tell a fun story about goldfish. Who knows what else will come up. But if you would like to be a part of that, you can head over to patreon.com/isthisadulting, sign up at the $5 level or more, and join the giving family. You receive bonus episodes every single week, and then the second half of the Real Talks every time. So definitely come check us out, and we're going to head over there. But thanks for listening, best friends. We'll see you on Thursday.